Welcome to another episode of the MRP Easy Manufacturing Podcast. Supply chains don't break politely. They break on a Friday afternoon. A vendor slips up on a delivery or your freight gets delayed. Now you're expediting, rescheduling, and explaining missed ship dates. Modern supply chain planning helps you identify problems earlier and make informed trade-offs. In this episode, we'll explain how you can create supply chain resilience and protect your bottom line. So, what is supply chain planning? Supply chain planning, SCP for short, is the decision-making layer of supply chain management that turns expected demand into a workable plan for purchasing, production, determining inventory levels, and delivery. It connects demand planning, what customer expectations will need, with supply planning, how you'll make and supply it, so you can balance materials, production capacity, inventory management, and lead times before the shop floor feels the pain. Supply chain planning comes down to answering three basic questions. What customer demand are we trying to satisfy, or what changed? Do we have the raw materials and production capacity to meet it? And if not, what's the best trade-off? Inventory, schedule, supplier, or promised delivery dates? SCP spans across three time-based perspectives. Strategic planning looks months to years ahead and covers big decisions like your supply network design, sourcing approach, and major capacity planning to meet future demand. Tactical planning works in weeks to months and focuses on aligning customer demand data, market trends, and supply through an S&OP cadence, setting inventory targets, and locking in supplier commitments. Operational planning runs day to day and week to week, translating the plan into action through master production scheduling outputs, purchasing plans, and production schedules. Supply chain planning versus supply chain management. Supply chain management, or SCM, is the whole system. It's how you plan, source, make, and deliver, including how you handle returns and customer service. It includes the people, processes, and daily routines that keep materials moving and orders shipping. Supply chain planning is the decision-making component within that complete system. It sets priorities, targets, and schedules, so purchasing and production aren't guesswork. For small manufacturers, this isn't academic or theoretical. It's relevant and pragmatic based on practical, sensible, realistic outcomes. Weak or poor supply chain operations turn into the chaos of constant expediting, an expensive habit that, in effect, means that crisis management has become the new normal. Customer satisfaction is often one of the first areas where your profitability starts failing. Strong supply chain planning cuts surprises, steadies the schedule, and makes ship dates a lot easier to hit. Supply chain planning versus supply chain optimization. Supply chain optimization is the use of technology such as artificial intelligence, real-time data analytics, blockchain, and connected systems to maximize efficiency and performance across your entire supply network. It goes beyond planning to include design decisions, where facilities are located, how products flow, execution systems, warehouse management, transportation, and real-time exception handling when disruptions occur. Supply chain optimization breaks down the data silos that typically separate internal functions like purchasing, production, warehousing, or transportation, and extends visibility to suppliers, vendors, and logistics partners. This end-to-end visibility lets you see what's actually happening across your entire network, not just within your own organization. Supply chain planning sits within this larger optimization framework. It's the ongoing, repeatable work of making trade-offs under real-time constraints, deciding what to buy, what to build, and when to build it based on lead times, capacity, inventory targets, and promised delivery dates. So planning creates the roadmap, while optimization uses technology to help you follow that roadmap more efficiently and to adjust automatically when inevitable obstacles appear. Key components of the supply chain planning process. Supply chain planning is a set of interconnected planning activities that feed into one another. When they're aligned, purchasing and production stop guessing. When they're not, you get late parts, schedule churn, and expensive expediting. Here are the key components of the supply chain planning process and how they transition from one to the other. 1. Demand planning. Demand planning is where you estimate what customers will need and when. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it does have to be consistent. The output is a demand plan, often built from forecasts and real-time order data, that gives the rest of the business a realistic starting point for meeting demand. Good demand planning includes a forecast you can explain in plain English, a short list of what changed since the last cycle, new orders, cancellations, spikes, and an agreement on the big drivers, seasonality, promotions, customer programs. Common traps include demand forecasting at the wrong level, either too detailed or too broad, treating quotes as firm demand and ignoring volatility, then acting surprised by it when it happens. When you have accurate customer demand projected, the next question is, can you supply it? 2. Supply planning. Supply planning turns demand into a feasible plan for how you'll fulfill it. This is where you balance materials, production capacity, and timing. For manufacturers, supply planning usually includes materials planning, procurement, and production planning working together. Supply planning decides what you'll make versus what you'll procure or outsource. It also determines when you'll run the work, what gets priority, and where capacity is tight: labor, machines, tooling, changeovers. Supply planning can break down when you have unrealistic lead times, unlimited production capacity thinking, and plans built without checking constraints. Even a great supply plan can fail if the inventory strategy is wrong. 3. Inventory planning. Inventory planning is where you decide what to stock, where to stock it, and how much protection or safety stock you need. This is where you set the inventory management rules that prevent shortages or stockouts without tying up cash in the wrong items. Inventory planning involves setting reorder points and safety stock targets for the items that truly need it to prevent bottlenecks. It also means determining where inventory should sit: raw, decoupling, finished goods, multi-location. Good inventory planning requires selective buffering, not raised safety stock on everything. There also needs to be clear reasons for each buffer, considering variability, downtime risk, and service level. Inventory policies only work when supplier reality is baked into the plan. 4. Supplier planning and supplier management. Supplier scenario planning is the part of supplier management that directly impacts the plan. Lead times, MOQs, minimum order quantities, quality risk, reliability, and backup options. It's less about scorecards and more about, can we trust this supply path when it counts? Supplier planning includes supplier and item lead times you actually update, MOQ and order cadence decisions that match cash flow, and supplier segmentation, critical versus non-critical, long lead versus short lead. It also means having realistic backup options like approved alternates or pre-qualified second sources and workarounds for supply chain disruptions. Supplier planning can go wrong if you just assume suppliers will figure it out during a supply chain disruption. It also won't work if you don't measure lead time variability, only looking at averages, or discover quality issues when the line is already down. Next, you need a rhythm to keep demand, supply, and inventory aligned. 5. S&OP alignment. S&OP, Sales and Operations Planning, is the regular cross-functional meeting cadence where sales, operations, finance, and leadership align demand plans with supply capabilities. They develop trade-off decisions about capacity, inventory, and customer commitments. It's where planning becomes strategic decision-making, forcing alignment before problems reach the shop floor. Most SMEs adopt a simplified approach that aligns demand, supply, capacity, and inventory without the overhead of formal S&OP programs. Many companies use it when constant expediting is costing money, but adding more process feels wrong. The goal isn't perfect demand forecasting. That's almost impossible because of inherent demand variability. The goal is faster alignment and better trade-offs before issues affect the schedule. Good S&OP alignment could include a short weekly exception huddle to determine what went sideways and why, a monthly plan review that locks priorities and decisions, and clear owners for data and parameters. Plans don't fail all at once. They drift, sometimes almost imperceptibly. That's why you need the feedback loop to maintain effective supply chain planning. 6. Exception management and feedback. Exception management is the control loop that keeps the plan straight. It's where you watch for misses, act fast, and then update the system so you don't fight the same fire next week. Exception management monitors things like late POs and supplier slips, shortages and stockouts, especially critical items, and schedule churn and expediting challenges. Over time, it's important to update lead times based on actual real-time performance numbers, adjust reorder points and safety stock where variability is real, and reclassify critical items as products and customers change. The benefits and challenges of supply chain planning. Supply chain planning isn't about perfection, but maintaining control of risk management. When your plan is solid, the shop floor runs more steadily, buyers stop guessing, and ship dates are easier to hit. You still get surprises, but you see them sooner and handle them with options, not panic. Here are 4 main benefits of supply chain planning. The benefits: more stable schedules and fewer replenishment expedites. You reduce last-minute changes, premium freight fees, and hot list chaos. Better promise dates that satisfy customer expectations. You commit based on real production capacity and accurate raw material availability. Smarter inventory and stronger cash flow. You buy the right inventory, not just more inventory, and you cut excess and obsolescence. Higher throughput and less downtime. Fewer shortages and fewer line stops or bottlenecks mean more work gets out the door. As good as the benefits sound, you need to be aware of the challenges you'll face as well. Acknowledging them can help prevent failures in your planning. The challenges. Supply chain planning usually doesn't fail because the team is lazy. It fails because the plan is built on shaky ground. Lead times that aren't real, BOMs that aren't clean, production capacity that gets treated like it's unlimited. Then the schedule starts drifting, shortages pile up, and everybody ends up expediting. The challenges below are the usual culprits: variability, market trends swings, supplier performance, and quality issues create constant drift in supply chain performance. Capacity blind spots, labor, machines, tooling, bottlenecks, and changeovers are real constraints. Ignore them and the schedule becomes fiction. Ownership gaps. If nobody owns parameters, lead times, reorder points, safety stock, the system will fail. SME constraints. Limited supplier leverage, MOQs, cash, space, and bandwidth make best practice advice hard to apply. Now that the benefits and challenges are laid out, it's good to know how all this planning and decision-making builds resiliency into your supply chain network structure. A resilient supply chain is mostly about time. Time to spot a problem, time to decide, time to recover. Supply chain planning improves all 3 because it connects demand, supply, and inventory management into one workable plan. That's how you catch risk early before the shop floor pays for it. Fragile supply chains fail in predictable ways. Single-source parts, long and variable lead times, limited supply chain visibility, inventory that's too lean or in the wrong place. Planning breaks that pattern. It forces you to flag critical items and suppliers, watch lead time variability, and build targeted buffers where the risk is real. Then cadence or an established rhythm does the rest. This could be weekly exceptions tracking, monthly reviews, and fast decisions like substitutions, alternate suppliers, resequencing, promise date changes, and smart expediting. Planning won't eliminate disruption completely, but it will shrink the damage window and make it manageable. How can supply chain planning software simplify SCM? Even with a relatively simple supply chain and an uncomplicated product line, problems can still mount up quickly. With manual tracking methods such as spreadsheets and standalone databases, issues can get out of hand in a heartbeat. Without a good process for supply chain visibility and supply chain management, a company can find itself inundated rapidly. That's where supply chain planning software comes into play. Here are 4 ways supply chain planning software can simplify your SCM. One source of truth for planning data. Centralize item masters, BOMs, lead times, minimum order quantities, safety stock, and supplier info so people stop working from different versions of reality. Better visibility into what's on hand, allocated, and incoming. See inventory status and expected receipts so you can spot shortages earlier and avoid surprise line stops. Faster, more consistent procurement and production decisions. Turn plans into actions, purchase suggestions, work orders, and reorder alerts, so you're not rebuilding the plan from scratch every week. Automate exception alerts instead of requiring constant human surveillance. Get notified when stock is low, orders are late, or supply slips so you can focus on decisions, not data chasing. Once the data is centralized and the alerts are working, the next step is using them with discipline. A simple weekly review, a monthly reset, a few clear rules for what gets expedited and what gets buffered. That's where supply chain planning starts to feel like control instead of chaos. Supply planning tips for SME distributors and manufacturers. You may have been taking some notes about how to create a resilient supply network while reading this article. It's vital that you find ways to simplify and manage your supply chain so as to avoid major disruptions in your manufacturing process. If you're a distributor, wholesaler, or retailer, many of these concepts apply to you as well. Here are 7 supply planning tips that every business can use. Don't chase perfect resilience. Chase fast recovery. You're not building an enterprise supply network. You're building options that keep work moving when something breaks. Start by defining what recover means for you. Figure out how many days you can tolerate a shortage on your critical products before it hurts. Diversify smart, not necessarily wide. Second sources sound great until MOQs, pricing, and limited leverage shut the door. Work the practical angles first. Pre-approve alternates, qualify substitutions, and keep a short list of backup suppliers for the parts that matter most. Use inventory as a tool, not a security blanket. Safety stock everywhere will crush cash flow and eat space. Buffer what protects uptime and customer commitments. Long lead parts, high variability items, and the components that can stop a line. Everything else gets leaner rules and tighter review. Plan around variability, not averages. Lead times move. Supplier performance drifts. Yields change. Track actual lead times and plan for variance, especially on long lead and critical items, so shortages stop surprising you. Build a playbook for the disruptions you see most. Late suppliers, quality rejects, demand spikes, freight delays. Decide your response before the emergency. Substitute, resequencing, partial ship, alternate supplier, outsource, or adjust promise dates. A simple playbook cuts decision time when things get messy. Writing it down saves time in the future and streamlines your process. Make maintenance part of resilience. A missing $40 spare part can cause a $40,000 outage. Treat critical spares like production materials, long lead tracking, reorder rules, and a short line stopper list. Your maintenance schedule is only as reliable as the parts you can get on time. Know and understand what they are. Make accountability real. Planning systems drift when nobody owns the inputs. Assign clear ownership for lead times, reorder points, safety stock, and supplier performance updates. Without it, you'll be right back to expediting, disaster recovery, and spreadsheet chaos. Making supply chain resiliency a habit. Supply chain resilience isn't a business planning project you finish, but a habit you keep and refine. When demand, supply, inventory, and suppliers are connected, and you make reviewing the plan a continuous process, disruptions stop turning into emergencies. Sure, you'll still get surprises now and then, but you see them sooner, make decisions faster, and keep vital work moving down the line. This makes all stakeholders happier. Start small. Pick the top line stoppers. Tighten lead times. Put buffers where downtime lives. Run a weekly exceptions review. Work to improve forecast accuracy and future demand data. Do that for 30 days and you'll feel the difference. Planning won't make the manufacturing or distribution world flawlessly predictable, but it will make your responses more predictable and effective. That wraps up this episode of the MRP Easy Manufacturing Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. For more information, go to mrpeasy.com. See you next time.